Life can be messy, but you don't have to figure it out alone.
Hey, it's the Luskos.
Join pastors and best-selling authors Levi and Jenny Lusko on Hey, It's the Luskos for honest conversations about faith, marriage, family, grief, ministry, and all the unexpected moments in between. You'll laugh, you'll be encouraged, and you'll be reminded that God is faithful through every season.
It will always come back to Jesus in the end.
That's right. Tune in to Hey, It's the Luskos with Levi and Jenny Lusko. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
One of these men is a highly respected New York attorney, Lucas A. Ferrara. The other is a self-proclaimed man of the people, known as Mert Roberts. Their aim is to discuss the hottest issues impacting our city, state, and nation. Fasten your seatbelts. Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live, starts now on AM 970, The Answer.
So what is the name of this tune, Alex?
I know. This is called Captured by the Spiderweb by Reversed Image.
Perfect choice. I guess I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about a new movie that has captured America's attention. Certainly captured mine. It's Spider-Man, Brand New Day. Now, I wanted to talk about more than just the numbers. I wanted to go a little bit deeper, because when a film about a lonely kid in a red and blue suit becomes the second biggest opening weekend in the history of movies, Mert, that's 355 million in North America, 927 million worldwide. In 3 days, something bigger is happening, something cultural, something psychological, and it says something about us. So let's settle in. Let's talk about Peter Parker, loneliness, what we're hungry for right now, and what a superhero movie might be saying about the country and the world. First, here are the facts, Mert. Spider-Man Brand New Day opened in July 31, just a few weeks ago, and by the end of the weekend, it had taken in multi-millions. As I said, 927 million worldwide. It set a single-day record for 168 million that Friday. Critics sat at around 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences, 98%. Amazing score, amazing cast. And here's the setup. Years after No Way Home, Peter Parker is living in a world that's completely forgotten him. The people he loves most no longer knows who he is. So he chooses solitude to protect them. So he does the only thing he still feels like is his, and he becomes Spider-Man full-time, day and night. No dual identity, just the suit, the city, and the waste. Well, as a result, the pressure builds. Something starts changing inside of him, physically, emotionally, and a new threat rises in New York. And that's a premise. A hero who erased himself from the world in order to save it now has to figure out how to keep existing in the quiet afterworld. Have you seen the movie at all, Mert?
No, but I'm actually fascinated that we're talking about Spider-Man, because I think, a lot of people don't realize this about Mr. Ferrara. He makes movies. He's a producer. If you got a good idea out there about a script, reach out to Mr. Ferrara. So this makes sense why you'd be so fascinated by the trends in American. Well, I shouldn't just say American, global
speaks
cinema.
Volumes, right? We're talking almost $1 billion worldwide in a weekend. And
right.
But you know what the theme that hits me, and I think it's a universal theme, loneliness. Okay, loneliness has become a full-blown public health epidemic in the United States, with about half of all adults reporting that they feel lonely on a regular basis. We're all Peter Parkers, Mert. National surveys show the problem is especially acute among younger adults, people living alone, and those facing economic stress. And the Surgeon General warns that chronic loneliness carries health risks comparable to smoking, obesity, heart disease, making it one of the most urgent and fastest growing social crises in the country. So it's important that we talk about it, not only from a cultural or a movie perspective, but for a crisis that it really is. Many of us are dying alone and have no way to
Well,
find.
that's a double-edged sword, because loneliness is a symptom of independence. It's a symptom of, I can do it by myself. I don't need anybody else. I can make my own way. I can afford my own rent. I can afford, to feed myself. I can take care of myself. I don't need a man, or I don't need to have a family to feel validated. So it's a double-edged sword. Now, if you want to go back to the 50s, or you want to go back thousands of years where, you would just promise your daughter off to somebody who could give you the most goats or whatever, we can go back to that, and you won't have to deal with the loneliness. But now that everybody has the opportunity to go and achieve their dreams, you can be number one if you work hard enough. You can make the most money. The sacrifices required might take you away from being with somebody. It might put you in a situation where you'll have to deal with loneliness. So I think it is not a problem. I think it's a lack of understanding. It's being too greedy is what I see it as. I see a lot of people out there who want to have everything. Do you want to have a family? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to have a spouse? Or do you want to be the best that you can be at whatever field or whatever venture you are chasing? And great things require great sacrifices. That's why that Spider-Man is a good example, because he lives a lonely existence because he realizes, I'm Spider-Man. I can't be a regular individual. I have to be there to protect people. I have to be up at 2, 3 in the morning to sling these webs and take out bad guys. It's a lonely existence. And if you want to be the Spider-Man in your own world, you have to deal with that. And it's unavoidable. We only got so much time in a day. You can't be a great husband usually. Some people can do it. You can't be a great father, all this stuff, when there's so much to be done.
Well, the experts like Dr. Vivek Murthy has spent years sounding the alarm, and in his advisory on the epidemic of loneliness, he wrote that loneliness is the subjective feeling that you're lacking the social connections you need. Loneliness is different than isolation and solitude, he says. Loneliness is a subjective feeling where the connections we need are greater than the connections we have. An interesting phenomenon, isn't it?
Well, you would think so, but I lump both of those into the same category. I see why he's trying to make a distinction, but I just can't make that distinction because, okay, let's separate it. Let's say you are somebody who's awkward. You haven't achieved anything, and you're lonely as a result because nobody wants to be around you. You can't make any friends. Well, oftentimes, it's a condition of being nervous, being too afraid of what other people think about you, not going out there and finding a circle to belong to, or finding a group of friends who will accept you for who you are. If you like, My Little Ponies, you can find a group of grown men who like My Little Ponies. They're called the Pony Bros or whatever. I was just watching a documentary about these guys.
They actually exist. They really do.
Yeah, they got groups for every little weird thing that you might think you're into. They have a group for it. So today, more than anything, because of the power of the internet, you can find a family to belong to. Now, it might be difficult to find somebody in your vicinity, but it's possible that you can find people who think similar to you. It's just a matter of having the energy to do it. And if you don't have that mentality, if nobody makes you aware of that's possible, then I can see why you'd be lonely. And this is the separation from the person who's just successful and they have no time for that stuff. Most people have time. They're just choosing not to take the time to do it for whatever reason. So that's my perception on that. So when this individual makes the distinction of, well, loneliness is different than isolationism, I have to disagree, because I think a lot of it is a choice that we're making. Even if we don't realize it, we're making a choice, in my opinion.
Well, the analogy they make is, for example, with Peter Parker, the Spider-Man character. He's surrounded by a city full of people that he's risking his life to protect. So he's surrounded by people, yet the specific connections that he needs, the ones that know his real name and his real self, are gone. So there's a void, there's an emptiness. So just being surrounded by guys who love ponies, or just being surrounded, you know what I mean? Finding that group that may be into the same shtick that you're into may not be enough and may not address the loneliness. It's deeper than that. It goes down to the very core, I think.
Well, the problem with the Spider-Man thing is he's making a choice. It's like I said, he's making a choice to keep his identity a secret. In my opinion, let everybody know who you are. Let everybody know Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and display who you are and live with the results. But for the purpose of, fiction, he's not going to do that. That wouldn't make a good story. Because you know what? It might make a good story. I mean, think about the Iron Man. Iron Man, he's the opposite of Spider-Man. Everybody know who Iron Man is. It doesn't seem to be bothering him. He seems to have everything going for him. Why can't Spider-Man do the same thing? So I think that it's all...
Well, do we really know that Iron Man isn't lonely? Do we know down to the core how he truly feels? I don't think we can really see that far. You know what I mean, Mert?
Well, that's a good question. If you're not, if you're not going to act like it, then you could be deep down feeling it. But I can only go based off how you act, and
that's right.
Or in the movies, says. In the movies, he seems to be pretty outgoing. He got the supermodel girlfriend. His face is all over the place. Big time successful businessman who said, "I'm gonna be a superhero as well." So this is where I believe there's two ways to approach great responsibility. You can do it in a way where you hide and you just do it for the good, or you could take the Iron Man approach as opposed to the Spider-Man approach and let everybody know, hey, I'm the one saving the world. Give me my flowers and invest in my stock. It's probably good for business that everybody knows that it's Iron Man who is solving all these crimes and being the protector of the people. So, like I said earlier, you can do it in different ways, or you can approach this issue that, a lot of people are feeling in different ways. You can accept the loneliness, or you can seek out a community. There's communities out there for everybody. They probably got a community for people who just feel lonely. We all feel lonely, and we just need to all come together. I'm pretty sure there's stuff for people who feel that way. Alex, ask Alex about has he ever felt lonely?
What do you think? Are you relating to this Peter Parker loneliness theme, or you think we're overreading it, Alex?
Oh, no, I relate to it. I mean, look, there are times where I feel that exclusion. However, you know what I do? I don't sit in it for too long, because then I go and find, things to do. People to go see that are going to accept me and not exclude me. I feel like we can make our own way. There isn't just one option. There are many options, and people don't know how to find their own way. I think I've tried to anyway. Find my own way when one group doesn't have me out or another group doesn't have me out. I find my own way. Look, yesterday I was at the Irish American Baseball Society. There are groups to link up with, as Mert is saying. The only question is, who the people that are lonely have this drive to just stay lonely. They don't have that drive to accept it and find their own way. Do you think that's correct?
I think that's absolutely correct. I think you have to shock yourself in a way and say, I got to go change this. Alex just said it. The Irish Baseball Association, whatever he just said, who would have ever thought that there was just an association for Irish baseball people? But
Exactly.
But Alex has found it. So like I was saying, there's a place for follicle challenged people who are lawyers. I'm pretty sure, Lucas, if you were lonely and you just wanted to be around a bunch of bald-headed guys who make a lot of money. You know, very rich, bald-headed guys. You could probably find a group who does just that.
Yeah, you go to the nearest casino. You go to the Hard Rock Casino. You find plenty of them. But, you know, going to where people are doesn't necessarily... going to places where people are doesn't necessarily resolve the problem, or that's the bigger point. I think, look around. Look, we're more connected digitally than any other generation in history, yet rates of loneliness remain high. Why is that?
Well, for the purposes of this segment, I'm going to assume we're talking about people who can understand the conversation we're having. But if you're talking about somebody who just has a dysfunction where they don't even understand what we're talking about, then they need help.
I'm talking about the common person. This movie is resonating with people around the world who are relating to this emptiness, this loneliness. And even though we're the most connected society digitally, we're seconds away from each other. We just press a button and I'm on your phone and we could see each other in seconds. People are still lonely in record numbers. And that, I think, is an indication of a larger and bigger problem. But no one wants to talk about it seriously. What do you think?
I almost think we're in a repeat cycle of how the 90s was the grunge movement, where everybody felt comfortable being depressed and, you know, they didn't want to be, you know, happy. They wanted to indulge in their loneliness. They wanted to indulge in all of that. And we might be in a period of that because for the last 20 years, we've been in a era where glitz and glamour have dominated, in my opinion. You know, social media has produced a lot of glamorous type individuals, and we're on social media all day, and I think there might be a backlash to that movement. And now you have people who want to relate to one another by being depressed and lonely. It reminds me of the grunge era in the 90s, where you had a lot of people, and you see it now with the fentanyl and all that type of stuff, who were hooked on these drugs. And that's something that is not spoke of. There's a lot of people out there smoking marijuana. It's legal now, getting high, and they're getting high to mask a lot of problems they have personally. And now they're coming out and they're letting the world know, I'm depressed, I'm lonely. Instead of doing something about it, they want to preach about it. And I don't think that's healthy, but I just think that's a fad that we're going through, and it reminds me a lot of the 90s.
I think we need to rise up and battle this together. I mean, maybe that's what Brand New Day is about. That we're lonelier than we admit, but we're more resilient than we know. And maybe we're looking for stories that tell us both of these truths at the same time. Because the real Brand New Day isn't on the screen. It's the one that starts when the lights come up and we walk back out into our own complicated lives and decide one more time to keep showing up for ourselves and for each other. Now, do you want to know what else we keep showing up for? How about Shake It Off with Merton Lucas Live? You're listening to episode 110. Would you believe it? This is Lucas Ferrara with me in the studio. AM 970 Radio in the heart of the financial district is my co-host, Mert Roberts. He's affectionately known as the Mertinator. Working the board, Alex Garrett. He's got a 5-star rated podcast, One Leg Up with Alex Garrett. Check it out. And of course, we must not forget Hermine Santos, who is back in Master Control. Now, when we come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Mark Evans. He's a composer, pianist, broadcaster, and cultural conservationist. He's the founder and president of the Cultural Conservation Foundation and the author of Mark My Words, How to Discover the Joy of Music, the Delight of Language, and the Pride of Achievement in the Age of Trash Talk and Cultural Chaos in Our Musical Heritage. I, along with Mert and Alex and all of us at AM 970 Radio, will return after these messages. We've got to slip away, but don't wander too far. Dr. Mark Evans joins us next to talk about cultural conversation and reclaiming the best of our musical, literary, and artistic heritage. Expect the conversation to open up, the honesty to sharpen, and your understanding of culture, identity, and the modern world to be challenged in the best possible way.
Amen. last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
In 1783, the Revolutionary War was nearly over, but America's future remained uncertain. Officers in the Continental Army were angry. Congress had failed to provide promised pay, and some considered using the Army's power to force the government's hand. George Washington understood their frustration, but he also knew the liberty they had fought to win could be destroyed by the very army that secured it. Washington confronted his officers and urged them to choose honor, patience, and loyalty to the Republic over rebellion. He could have used their anger to increase his own power. Instead, he used his influence to restrain it. Power asks what it can take. Character asks what duty requires. Washington's lesson still stands. Freedom survives when leaders place principle above ambition and remain faithful to God, country, and the people they serve.
Hey, Joe Piscopo here. I want to tell you about my friends at Landmark Capital. You've seen the stock market bounce around lately, but did you know gold and silver have outperformed every major stock index over the past 5 years? David Fisher at Landmark Capital is the man to call if you want to roll over your 401k or IRA into physical gold and silver. Now is the time to take advantage of that protection and performance. Landmark Capital makes it easy. They'll educate you on the different precious metals markets so you can choose what's right for you. And better yet, they'll handle all the paperwork. They take care of everything so your retirement stays safe and keeps growing. Call Landmark Capital today for a free, no-obligation strategy call with CEO David Fisher and his team. There's no pressure, just a conversation about rolling over all or part of your 401k or IRA or simply adding gold and silver to your portfolio. Call 844-604-2575, 844-604-2575, or go online to landmarkgold.com. That's landmarkgold.com.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
Wow, that's powerful stuff, Alex. What is the name of that one?
Cinematic history score, courtesy of copyright-free music for you.
How fitting, given our next guest focus. If you ever felt that something vital is slipping away from our culture, great music, precise language, genuine achievement, and the stories that once bound us together, then Dr. Mark Evans is the voice you need to hear. Composer, conductor, pianist, organist, author, and founder of the Cultural Conservation Foundation, Dr. Evans grew up in the golden age of Hollywood film music. He studied privately with legendary composers and earned his doctorate from Claremont Graduate University and has spent a lifetime championing our best of musical and cultural heritage. He hosts the long-running television program Mark My Words and is the author of Soundtrack, the music of the movies, Mark My Words, and our musical heritage from Yankee Doodle to Carnegie Hall, Broadway, and the Hollywood soundstage. Through cultural conversation, I'll say it right, through cultural conservation, there you go, he insists that society must protect its cultural resources with the same care it gives its natural ones. It's a pleasure to have him on the program. Please welcome Dr. Mark Evans. Doctor, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for that splendid introduction and all those nice things you said about me.
Well, if I only could say cultural conservation right, we'd be fine. Doc, you describe America as being in the midst of a cultural crisis. Now, what are the clearest signs of that crisis as far as music, language, and the arts today are concerned?
Well, I became concerned because as a composer and writer, I observed students coming out of school unfamiliar with any music other than what they'd encountered through social media, typically rock, pop, and rap, and nothing else. Many hadn't read a book that had not been assigned to them. Many others didn't know even the most basic facts of American history. And as we celebrate America's 250th birthday, we certainly should pay attention to the achievements of our great founding fathers, but we also should not neglect our musical founding fathers, the composers, performers, teachers, and many others who gave us a wonderful musical heritage. We are, in fact, in a state of cultural crisis. And I think that crisis came about essentially because of several mistakes that we've made. The first, if I may outline those for you, is the fact that change and progress are not synonymous. I sometimes say that the phrase new and improved means a bigger box and fewer cornflakes.
Ah, that's hilarious.
Russell Kirk, a great philosopher, said that hasty innovation may be a devouring conflagration rather than the torch of progress. And this is a serious situation. The second mistake we make is we confuse fame and quality. We live in what I call the celebrity culture. Fame and celebrity do not necessarily equal achievement. And today we often honor and pay most attention to people who are simply famous after having become famous. And this is especially true in the age of social media influencers, who often have no particular achievement at all. Finally, the third mistake we make is that we confuse technology and wisdom. Just because something is on a computer or on a digital device doesn't mean that it necessarily is wise. And I say this especially with the advent of artificial intelligence. Just because something is supposed to be intelligent doesn't mean that it necessarily offers us wisdom. And finally, last but not least, we tend to like what we know. The actor Vincent Price was a serious art collector, and he once wrote a book called I Like What I Know, suggesting that what I like is what is familiar to me. And unfortunately today, too many people are not familiar with very much. So those are the causes of this cultural crisis.
But Doc, isn't this a failure of our education system? If kids are leaving school, not understanding the foundation of our founding, music history or art history, it's a failure of our education system. Doesn't it start there?
Absolutely. The educational system is one of the great sources of the problem. And I sometimes say there are three places we look for solutions. And the first one we look to is academia, and unfortunately academia tends to be part of the problem. When I first started talking about this subject, I used to stress some of the superficial and outlandish courses that you could find on college campuses. For example, one that Vassar College offered called The Sociology of Sociability, which sounds very serious, except it turned out to be a course on the giving of parties. And in recent times, however, it's become far more serious because the colleges and universities, as well as elementary and secondary schools, have tended to become sources of indoctrination with a political and social agenda. The second place we look to for a solution is the government. Of course, I know you know that Ronald Reagan famously said that the scariest words in the English language were, "Hi, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help." And we know, of course, that the government is part of the problem, so it's not going to be part of the solution. And the third problem is we turn to the entertainment and media industries. And, of course, those are industries that typically are obsessively concerned with making money, so they're not the solution either. And you're absolutely right. I would certainly place much of the blame in the educational system. And particularly, we're dealing not only with a cultural crisis, but what the Professor Stephen Bertman, who was a Canadian, called cultural amnesia. We've lost our history, and I think the vanishing history and the loss of our language are the other two components of a crisis that we're really facing. Of course, my major interest being music, I like to talk about that. But these are the elements that have given us an enormous challenge. And
well, let me ask this.
Watch for the Murdinator, Doc. It's the Murdinator.
What about the language of money? Because money speaks louder than most languages. So what about that language of money? Because I think that's the biggest thing that makes producing these masterful pieces difficult, because the cheap hip-hop beat can be done by one person where you need 30 people for an elaborate orchestra to perform. So what about the language of money?
Well, there was a writer some years back who wrote a book about Hollywood, and he talked about the morality of hard cash. It is a problem when you have industries that are completely obsessed with profit to the exclusion of quality.
Right.
Technology does offer a problem, but you can still do things that are profitable and have them represent elements of quality. We don't see a great deal of that today. My concern about the loss of our language comes, for example, from the increased language of bureaucracy, the increased vulgarity in language, the advent of political correctness, the fact that students come out of school who can't read, write, or spell. And this is especially true when we talk about history. I'll give you a small example of that. The historian David McCullough wrote many fine books. One of them was a book about World War II and the life of Harry Truman. He was interviewed on television, and he had been talking about the troops storming Normandy Beach on D-Day. And as they were leaving the studio, the TV interviewer, this is a so-called professional broadcast journalist, turned to him and said, "Gee, that was very interesting. Where can I find out more about this guy, Norman D. Beach?" He thought Normandy Beach was a person.
Wow.
And
wow.
You certainly in my field, in the fields of both classical music and popular music, the technology has actually made it less expensive to do a lot of things that composers would like to do, although I happen to believe that a synthesizer will never, ever be able to replace a true live orchestra. And whether it's a large ensemble or a small ensemble, it's the quality of the music that really counts.
Hey, Doc, if our kids can't read or write, how do we salvage our culture? Because the culture, in terms of priority, it's way down on the spectrum. So, I mean, if they can't read or write, what are they going to care about music or culture or language? This is a major problem. Don't you see it as one?
Yes, absolutely. And there are solutions, and it's important when you ask me about the possible solutions. I started a nonprofit organization called Cultural Conservation, and we provide resources to parents and grandparents who are interested in seeing that their children and grandchildren can absorb our true heritage, our musical heritage, and our cultural heritage.
And Doc, we will talk about the your group after the break, because we have to take a quick commercial message right now. So, Dr. Evans, don't go away. You'll be rejoining us after these messages. For more information about Dr. Evans and his work, visit his organization's website, Cultural Conversation. I wish I said it right? Conservation. Culturalconservation.org. Oh, Doc, shoot me. You'll find his books, Mark My Words, and Our Musical Heritage on Amazon and wherever books are sold. That's culturalconversation.com. No, I can't get it right, Doc. Can you say it, please?
It's Cultural conservation. Just think of the word conserve.
Yeah, I know. I'm brain dead tonight. We'll also have links posted on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Now you better stay right where you are. Dr. Mark Evans is back after the break with more insight from his work as cultural conservationist, including why recovering our shared literary and artistic heritage is essential if we want to reverse the decline that threatens the next generation.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to NewmanFerrara.com. That's NewmanFerrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate. Born on America's darkest day of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been helping America's heroes ever since. Heroes like Fire Captain Andrew Donner, inspired by the bravery of New York City firefighters on 9/11. Andrew devoted his life to serving his community. He rose through the ranks of his fire department, sharing his knowledge, training rigorously, and leading with courage. But after a brave battle, Andrew lost his life to lung cancer caused by occupational toxins. Andrew leaves behind his beloved wife, Jessica, their son, his parents, and sister. Tunnel to Towers honored Andrew by paying the Donner family's mortgage. Help more families like the Donners, please. Your donation to Tunnel to Towers can bring hope and security to families who have sacrificed so much for us. Donate $11 a month. Go to T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, and then T.org.
We love bringing you products that improve your life. Well, this product can save your life or the life of those that we cherish the most, our youngest children. There are approximately 5,000 choking deaths in the U.S. each year. One child dies every 5 days from choking. Children under the age of 5 are most at risk. There is a solution. It's called LifeVac. Arthur Lee is the founder, CEO, and inventor of LifeVac. LifeVac is a simple rescue device that can change your child's life in a choking emergency. It's non-invasive and easy to use, and one kit fits the whole family. If you have a young child in your family, I strongly recommend you visit the LifeVac website at lifevac.net. That's LIFEVAC.net. Listen to Arthur's compelling story and view the videos demonstrating its ease of use. LifeVac works in 3 simple steps: place, push, and pull. The LifeVac device dislodges the obstruction and suctions out the food or object. It's that simple. LifeVac.net, made in the USA, and FDA registered.
AM 97, The Answer. Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
We are joined again by Dr. Mark Evans. He's a composer, pianist, author, broadcaster, and cultural conservationist, founder and president of the Cultural Conservation Foundation. I got it, Doc. He's host of the television program Mark My Words and author of Mark My Words and Our Musical Heritage, powerful works that call for the preservation of America's finest cultural treasures. He's back with us now to push the conversation forward. For more information about Dr. Evans and his work, visit his website, culturalconservation.org. Culturalconservation.org. You'll find Mark My Words and Our Musical Heritage on Amazon and wherever books are sold. And we'll also have links posted on our website, shakeitofflive.com. So let's continue that conversation. Doc, before the break, you were telling us about your foundation. Did you want to continue that thought?
Yes, indeed. You had asked me earlier about solutions. We've talked about the problem, but I'm a great believer in looking for solutions. Now, of course, there are ways institutions that can be reformed. For example, we can certainly reform academia through techniques such as school choice and homeschooling, and there even are new universities and colleges starting. We also can reform government by electing better leaders, especially at the local level, regarding the Board of Education. We even can reform the entertainment industry through the startup of new enterprises and new creative ventures using the new technology, which makes things less expensive. But the problem is all those reforms take two things. They take time and they take money. And if you have children or grandchildren, you don't want to wait a year or 2 years or 10 years for those reforms to take place. So I've become a big advocate of self-help. I bring up the classic story of the great science fiction writer Ray Bradbury. I had the pleasure of knowing Ray. He was one of the best-known writers in the world. When he got out of high school, he was too poor to go to college, so he went several days a week to the Los Angeles Public Library, read his way through the library, and he would tell people, I never graduated from college, but I graduated from the Los Angeles Library. And that's a wonderful example. Today, of course, his books are taught and studied throughout the world. So you can do things today with self-education. We provide some of the resources with the books we publish, certainly the books I've written. I decided it was better to light a few candles and curse the darkness, so one of the candles I lit was a book called Our Musical Heritage, and I talk about the four great genres of American music: concert music, music for symphony orchestra, operas, ballets, chamber music, written by great American composers that you rarely hear about in school. And most people don't even realize a composer signed the Declaration of Independence. His name was Francis Hopkinson. He wasn't an important composer, but he did sign the Declaration, and he wrote some songs that brought tears to the eyes of his friend Thomas Jefferson. They were dedicated to his other good friend, George Washington. We also need to talk about jazz, which came from the achievements of black Americans and emerged as an international language. Jazz, of course, involves swing and simultaneous composition and performance. There's the great Broadway musical theater and the great American songbook. That's a third genre that should be studied and appreciated. And finally, one of my specialties, the area of motion picture music. Classic film scores have provided some of the most wonderful moments in the history of the arts. And these are all parts of our musical heritage. And frankly, as we look at the study of our 250th anniversary, we have neglected some of our musical founding fathers, and I hope that people will take a look at cultural conservation and at our books. We hope eventually to turn one of those books into a television miniseries. I might add one other very important point, because I think you may ask me about this. People will say, you think it's too late. The crisis is serious. Is there hope? Do we have a potential for reform? And one of my great mentors was a wonderful writer called Richard Armour. Dr. Richard Armour wrote over 60 books of humor and light verse in his lifetime. And I asked him once if he happened to be an optimist or a pessimist. He said, well, the optimist always expects everything to turn out all right, and he sees the glass always as half full. The pessimist thinks things are going to always go wrong, and he sees the glass as half empty. But he said, I like to characterize myself as a realist with dreams. And that's how I would describe myself as well. I try to follow Dr. Armour's example. We can make changes. We can make improvements, but you can do it especially by allotting a certain amount of time with your children or grandchildren or friends. The tools are available online. The books are available. The videos are available. And through self-help, essentially, we have a movement that can preserve what I call the best of our past, which shouldn't be forgotten, the best of the present that shouldn't be ignored, and the best of the future that shouldn't be undiscovered.
What's one concrete action or discovery from your work that you hope every listener will carry forward?
One concrete action would be to make a resolution to start learning today. You're never too young to start. You're never too old to start. You can start at any time. And the tools are there. Take a look at my book, Our Musical Heritage, to find out what our musical heritage really is. And we believe very strongly that if we all work individually, it's very much like the musicians in an orchestra. Each musician is playing his own part. But when you put them all together, it turns into a movement that has a tremendous amount of power and an opportunity to turn the cultural crisis around.
Now, Doc, you host Mark My Words, and you've interviewed hundreds of distinguished artists and thinkers. What is a common thread you hear from true achievers versus the culture of celebrity? How do we distinguish the two?
I think you have to begin by establishing values and standards. You need to recognize that to find true achievement, you just don't look for fame. To find true progress, you just don't assume that because something represents change, that it's new, that it necessarily is better. And you try to pursue the goal of wisdom rather than just assuming that technology is the answer. And we can do that by looking at the examples of those who are great role models. I had the opportunity to meet and know some of the great composers in the world during my student days, and one of those was the composer Miklos Rozsa, who said, "I have no time for any music which does not reflect pleasure in life, and more importantly, pride in life." And I think if you look for that, you look for pride in life, you look for beauty, you look at the values being expressed by works of art, by books, by motion pictures. And of course, it's always good to remember that we stand on the shoulders of those who became accomplished before us. And by not losing our past, we can continue to sustain the present and therefore ensure a much more promising future.
And a promising first step is to pick up one of your books, right, Doc?
Well, I certainly hope so. There are many good books out there. I like to recommend mine because I did specifically write them to talk about the Mark My Words book, The Cultural Crisis, and our musical heritage, to talk about, from a musical standpoint, what we should be appreciating and celebrating as we celebrate the 250th birthday of our country.
Doc, would you believe we've run out of time? For more information about Dr. Mark Evans, the Cultural Conservation Foundation, and his books, including Our Musical Heritage and Mark My Words, visit culturalconservation.org. The books are available on Amazon and wherever books are sold, and we'll also have the links posted on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Thank you so much for coming on the program, Doc. We hope you had fun, and thanks for reminding us that cultural resources are just as precious as natural ones, and that every one of us can become a cultural conservationist starting today. Thanks, Chuck. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure joining you.
Well, my friends, that concludes show number 110. That's over 2 full years of live programming right at your very fingertips. Special thanks to the Burtonator, Mert Roberts, my co-host. 110 amazing episodes. That's 220 hours of live entertainment. And if you think that's easy, you try it. And to Alex Garrett, thank you. Couldn't have done it without you. Check out his podcast, One Leg Up with Alex Garrett. You'll be glad you did. And to everyone behind the scenes at AM 970 Radio, Laura Schaefer, Matthew Samblin, Joe Sevilla, Frank Volpe, Ryan Pagano, Cara Fasaro, and of course, Hermin Santos. Our thanks. Before we go, check out my movies. They're streaming everywhere. My latest hit, 5002 Space Aliens. Ooh, eerie, people love it. And the New York Times loves my loopy horror film, Manor of Darkness. It's one of the top 5 movies to stream. Don't miss it. Also, if you're listening to us live, next up is one of my favorite radio programs, other than Dottie Herman's Eye on Real Estate, and that's Culinary Confidential with Christina Gates. It is up next at 9 p.m. Until next week, stay well, enjoy life, don't be lonely, and appreciate our culture and our heritage, our music and our literature. Same time, same place, More next week. Shake It Off Live with Merton Lucas.
The preceding program is sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.
Life can be messy, but you don't have to figure it out alone.
Hey, it's the Luskos.
Join pastors and best-selling authors Levi and Jenny Lusko on Hey, It's the Luskos for honest conversations about faith, marriage, family, grief, ministry, and all the unexpected moments in between. You'll laugh, you'll be encouraged, and you'll be reminded that God is faithful through every season.
It will always come back to Jesus in the end.
That's right. Tune in to Hey, It's the Luskos with Levi and Jenny Lusko. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.